This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News. The Catholic Church has rejected proposed new laws forcing priests to report all incidents of child sexual abuse, even when heard in confession. The Tasmanian government has received overwhelming support for the proposal, which it released for community consultation today. But Hobart's Catholic Archbishop says the changes will make children less safe.
Tasmanian priests could soon face a life sentence in prison if they fail to report child sexual abuse, even if heard under the veil of confession.
In response to the Royal Commission, it is important that all members of the community take responsibility for heinous crimes that have been committed in the past.
Confession is when churchgoers confidentially admit their sins to a priest. But new draft laws from the Tasmanian government make it mandatory for priests to break that seal of confession if they hear of abuse against a child.
We owe it to our children now and into the future to protect them against any form of abuse, and this will certainly help.
The Catholic Church has refused to back the plan, saying in a statement confession was sacred and the change could make children less safe. However, the Anglican Church has taken a different view, committing to reporting all unreported cases of abuse.
We are committed to the confidentiality of the confessional, but only if the minister taking that confession is satisfied that the person has already been to the police.
The same laws will also apply to mandatory reporters, including teachers, nurses and politicians, all facing jail time if they fail to report child abuse. It's a change that has concerned the union, saying it could have unintended consequences.
I think some people will decide not to take on roles that have mandatory reporting obligations because of this system.
But overwhelmingly the proposal was supported.
The protection of the confessional for pedophiles is not justifiable and the law must reflect that.
I hope changes like this will encourage people to speak up, will empower young people to be heard and know that they'll be listened to.
We can't erase what's happened in the past, but we can look to the future and say this can't happen again.
The draft legislation is open for consultation until October 26 and will be introduced into Parliament later this year. Michelle Wisby, Southern Cross News.
A Tasmanian couple whose daughter was bullied at school says the government needs to progress its cyberbullying legislation. The government says it's awaiting the release of a national approach to implement the changes, but anti-bullying campaigners say it can't wait.
At just 15 years old, Kayla Edwards says she's been the subject of relentless bullying over the last 3 years.
You know, Kayla's been put through hell.
Kayla's parents say despite desperate attempts to keep her at Glenora District High School, they had no other choice but to pull her out and put her through homeschooling.
I spoke to the Education Minister, I spoke to people within the department. They wouldn't do anything.
That bullying continued online on social media platform Snapchat. The police got involved as recently as last weekend, but the family are told their hands are tied.
I said there's not a lot they can do, and these bullies, they know that.
Kayla's not alone. Vicky Attard is speaking out alongside Kayla's parents, sharing her experience of her autistic son being relentlessly tormented.
He was called a pedophile, made fun about how he talks, and they just knew the buttons to push for him because of his condition.
Anti-bullying campaigners are pushing for change to be implemented and fast.
Be proactive, not the reactive, because every day that passes, someone's suffering.
The government needs to wake up and fix what's happening because it's out of control.
The government agrees there needs to be action and says a nationally consistent approach will soon be released and used in consideration for Tasmanian legislation.
It is a space that crosses not only injustice but also education for obvious reasons. Cyberbullying is prolific in young people.
But for people like Kayla, who will miss out on her Year 10 formal, it will be too late.
She already bought the shoes, but she had to sell the shoes. We had a horse and carriage set up to take it to the formal, but that's had to be cancelled. But she's taken that pretty hard because she wanted to go.
Louise Hedger, Southern Cross News.
The coroner is waiting on 2 major reports into prison management and mental health care before holding an inquest into the death of Vula Delios. The North Hobart shopkeeper was stabbed to death by a man who'd just been released from jail and was affected by a severe mental illness.
The daughter of Vula Delios at the Coronial Court for the next stage of legal proceedings into her mother's death. Mrs Delios was stabbed to death by Darryl Royston Wayne Cook inside the North Hobart grocer in 2016. He's been found not guilty on the ground of insanity. Mr Cook had been released from Risdon Prison just the day before, and a previous Supreme Court trial heard he had been suffering from severe delusions in the months leading up. Coroner Simon Cooper heard this inquest will centre around Mr Cook's time in custody and his mental health care. The lawyer representing the state saying coronial hearings should be delayed until 2 key reports are completed. One is an urgent departmental review of prisoner psychiatric assessments and discharge processes. The other, an examination by the custodial inspector of mental health care in the prison. That inspector has already flagged concerns, his last annual report raising issues of overcrowding in the prison system, stretched services for prisoners and the lack of a mental health unit. Coroner Cooper is set to examine what happened in the lead up to Mrs Delios's death, any contributing factors and recommendations to help prevent similar incidents from happening again. The court heard May is the earliest available date for the inquest hearings, and the matter will return for another case management conference in December. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
Public sector unions have vowed to keep fighting against the government's offered 2% wage rise, saying they will not give up until the offer is increased. Employees rallied through the streets of Hobart today as industrial action continues to escalate. From tomorrow, some staff in the public sector will restrict unpaid work, take breaks away from the workplace and ban contact out of hours.
When you don't value them enough to even give them a pay rise that keeps up with inflation, you're saying you don't respect them, and that is how public sector workers feel with this government now.
We need to understand that any increase from 2% will have an impact on the budget each and every year of $28 million.
The unions haven't ruled out walking off the job if negotiations fail. Tasmania's Aboriginal Land Council is making a bid to secure ownership of a strip of coastline in the state's west. Talks will soon start with the state and federal governments over the future of the area between Granville and Marrawar.
This is a very sensitive cultural area, and it's very rich with Aboriginal history. 2,500 Aboriginal people lived on that west coast strip for thousands and thousands of years, probably 60 or 70,000 years.
The Land Council says it wants to rebuild villages in the area to revive Aboriginal heritage. Former Tasmanian Senator Jackie Lambie and an SBS television crew have been forced to take cover after coming under fire in Syria. Footage shows the group running up a flight of stairs after gunfire broke out nearby from suspected IS insurgents.
But my problem is now, are we the target? So that's the question that we need to ask.
The crew had been filming for the series Go Back Where You Came From. As anticipation builds for the race that stops the nation, the winner's prize is being shown off in Tasmania. Residents of a South Hobart aged care facility getting their hands on the coveted 2018 Melbourne Cup.
Someone that, has lived the fullness of life needs to still be reminded that they are so much part of a tremendous history that is the Melbourne Cup.
Also visiting the Cup from 1972, when Tasmanian-bred Piping Lane was first across the line. The public event will be held at Salamanca Square tomorrow. Tasmania's war history is coming to life with a new play, telling the stories about the end of World War I. In conjunction with the Army Museum, Aftermath delves into how Tasmania reacted to the armistice and families searching for answers about their loved ones.
We'll group this together with a little exhibition of our own from Army Museum Tasmania here, and I think it's terribly important that we tell not only the story of the war but the story of things that went on at home.
The play runs next Friday and Saturday. The crew of a small boat has been forced to abandon ship in Bicheno after apparently striking rocks. Marine Safety Tasmania is warning mariners to watch out for the sunken vessel at the Gulch Wharf. It's not known how many people were on board the vessel when it sank in the early hours of Sunday morning. Access to the jetty has been restricted until the boat has been salvaged. A group of humpback whales has delighted onlookers with an early morning show today in Fortescue Bay. A fisherman captured this stunning video of the frolic, with the marine giants leaping clear of the water.
And again!
The pod spent half an hour making a splash before moving on. Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news. Thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market has closed lower, dragged down by financial and healthcare stocks. The ASX 200 index has dropped by 46.1 points. And a short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 72 US cents and 81.96 Japanese yen.
Tasmanians have revved up again at the Australian Junior Motocross Championships. Local rider Angus Pearce finished third in his Mini Lights SW heat, while Jed Gray crossed the line fourth in the 50cc final.
The noise is deafening. And the descent's daring. This petrol-powered mix makes up the Australian Junior Motocross Championships. It's drawn 350 of the country's best young riders to Penguin, with 50 Tasmanians among them, including brothers Jack and Callum Penny.
Trying to support each other.
Do you love to beat each other?
Yeah.
Their dad, a former state champion, supports the pair in the pits. They've travelled from their homemade track.
We've got some jumps in the paddock.
To this adrenaline arena at the Coastal Motocross Club. Considered one of the few tracks in the country where spectators have a clear view of every twist and turn. These riders will tell you reaching the starting gate is half the battle. It takes a full family commitment to finance a rising motocross star.
For mum and dad, things that they want to do, and they give that up for me to come and do races, and I really appreciate it.
12-year-old Tate Young from Burnie is racing in 2 classes. He dreams of one day hitting tracks on the mainland and overseas.
First time I hopped on a motorbike, I loved it, and I've never got off since.
The juniors here are aged from 8 to 16 years old. Most have taken racing advice from their parents and then thrown caution to the wind.
You just told me not to fall over.
It's free to go and watch the championships, which are running until Saturday.
Good evening. A profusion or plethora of places on our high today of 20, Ouse, Bushy Park, Campania, Fingal and the Bass Strait Islands, all on our top spot. Hobart 16 degrees, Launceston 19, Burnie 15 and Devonport 16. There was a light shower detected on the radar over the north and west, but no significant falls today. St Helens, Friendly Beaches and Grove all 18 degrees, Smithton and Strawn 17, Lyre, Weenie and Low Head 15. Middle and high level clouds across the state that moved over from the northwest during the morning. Cloud also extends over central and eastern Australia ahead of a low pressure trough that links to a low over the Bight. Extensive cloud follows behind a cold front south of Western Australia. Tomorrow a cold front crosses Tasmania with a low pressure trough extending over the northern and eastern mainland. A high becomes established over WA. Winds tending southwest to southeasterly at 15 to 25 knots and locally to 30 knots over eastern waters, swells to 5 metres in the south. A strong wind warning has been issued in the east from St Helens Point to Tasman Island. Tomorrow for Hobart, showers easing. A top of 16 after 10 this evening, 15 the high for Geefston, showers easing from Bothwell 15. A few showers overnight for Launceston but clearing later, 21, 20 the top for Devonport, clearing showers from Cressy and 19 degrees. Burnie, similar sort of forecast, showers easing, 18 the top, just 14 for Strawn, Curry on King Island, a shower or 2 and 15 degrees, and for St Helens a few showers, 19, 17 the top for Swansea and Orford, 16 degrees. On Thursday, a shower over the north coast, contracting to the northwest, fine elsewhere after a cold frosty start, maybe a light shower over the north on Friday, but fine and partly cloudy for most of the state, and on Saturday a generally fine day with light winds. A shower or two and a possible storm for Darwin tomorrow. A shower or two in Adelaide and Melbourne. Partly cloudy for Sydney and Brisbane, but a sunny 34 in Darwin. Little cloud about. It's 13 degrees in Hobart, 13 in Launceston and 12 right now in Devonport. Joe, our operations staff are split on your outfit tonight. It's 50-50. If you at home would like to make a comment, we've got a Facebook page. Love reading all that. Joe, I'm giving it a pass. It's a pass for me.
Fantastic. Well, my mum likes it, so that's all I need. Thank you very much, Merv. That's all from the team for now. Thanks for your company. Bye-bye.